Hello, this is Greg Masters, Managing Editor of SC Magazine, and I'm here today with Domingo Guerra of Appthority, based in San Francisco. He's in town for a developers conference, and we're glad you stopped in. We're going to talk about the threat of mobile malware and how the enterprise can possibly manage the employee use of mobile devices with the millions of apps out there available for their use and pleasure and convenience. So welcome, Domingo. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Greg.
Are you seeing acceptance of the need to manage employees using their own personal devices and exactly what's going on?
Yeah, so I think there's two big trends that are converging in the enterprise. One is the consumerization of IT, or the bring your own device movement, where people like to bring the cool devices and the nice user interfaces of products they use at home, but they want to use them at work.
Right.
And the second movement that also drives the devices is the movement towards apps. And all the tools that were traditionally in the desktop now are being rewritten for mobile to take advantage of employee mobility and being able to work remotely. So we're seeing those two movements really driving adoption of devices in the enterprise. And as a result, IT is having to evolve in their traditional model of being very strict and controlling to be a little bit more welcoming and opening, and at the same time bring in tools that can help them manage those risks.
It's certainly a convenience for the IT departments. They don't have to reset passwords all the time, or you told me before we began taping that people using their iPhone were just going to go to the Genius Bar rather than to the IT department to fix something. So there's some convenience, but what about cost effectiveness?
Yeah, so I mean, there are some changes in the do-it-yourself attitude as well. In the old days, you would get a computer at work and you wouldn't even dream about trying to fix anything yourself. Anything went wrong, you would take it to IT and have them work on it. But now, as consumers, we've learned to be a little more tech savvy. We go to web forums to find out more, or we can be walking around and go to the Apple store and get support on our devices. So the idea that IT is the only way to fix things is no longer the model. And that from a cost perspective, sometimes IT realizes, hey, instead of purchasing a fleet of devices for everyone and reimbursing the bill, maybe I can just reimburse the bill and have employees buy their own phone. That's a big offload there. And if it lowers IT costs from a support angle because they're getting self-help elsewhere, then it's a cost savings in the long run.
Okay, and there's no question that apps are a big part of this. I think I saw in the Times this week, Apple has 600,000 and Android, I believe 400,000.
Yeah, about 450,000 already.
So it's a million apps. So how can an enterprise possibly make sure that their employees are using safe apps, and I mean, how could you possibly guard against that?
Yeah, so it's a big problem that the enterprise is realizing. In the world of the desktop space, there was a number of software from the key software makers, so the big corporations developing software. In the app space, anyone with a computer can develop an app. So anyone in a garage is an app company, and they create an app, put it on the app store, and it somehow ends on your device. The device is in the enterprise, it accesses enterprise servers. So overnight, apps became enterprise software. So how does IT now start treating that as enterprise software? They really have to look for tools in the market that let them analyze apps in bulk, because there's too many of them to do manual review, and then to be able to customize the review process. Because with software, there's, okay, if it's an accounting tool, it has to meet these certain accounting standards, or there's certain standards. That with apps, one game will not have the same performance or security standards that a security app or a finance app. So being able to customize that grading process is something that IT is looking for.
And these apps can be developed anywhere in the world.
Absolutely.
But they're using basically the same coding language, whether it's for iOS or Android, or what else is there these days? BlackBerry.
Yeah, so we see BlackBerry has a less number of apps, but a big footprint from just the traditional corporate device. But iPhone and Android are really making their way into the enterprise. Windows Phone 7 is another one that we see sometimes as well. But yeah, as you mentioned, any developer from all over the world can create these apps and distribute them either through Apple and through Google or through enterprises directly. So now companies are creating their own enterprise app stores to be able to manage content. So it's not just the million apps we talked about earlier, but it's the million apps plus the different versions of those apps, and now the private apps that IT develops or the marketing team develops or within the company are being developed as well.
Okay, and this is a global phenomenon. I mean, mobile is just exploding.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
And
so
it's across verticals. I mean, it's in technology. We have customers in the healthcare space. There's a big movement for mobile health apps where they're thinking about having doctors prescribe an app to monitor your health and your eating and your exercise. We see it in government. So now soldiers are able to buy a phone off the rack and be able to receive confidential information. We see it in education. Students are replacing textbooks with iPads now or tablets, and they have content delivered that way. So it's really across all verticals internationally. The world is moving to the app model. So how do we keep those apps safe?
Well, that's going to have to be it. Thank you, Domingo, for coming in. Thank you for tuning in.